Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
They are the best of the best teenage musicians from across the country. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. The National Youth Orchestra of the United States of America is in San Diego on the final stop of its national summer tour, mentored and trained by the best from New York's Carnegie Hall Music Institute. KPBS education reporter MG Perez is live at the Rady Shell, where dress rehearsals are just wrapping up. MG?
John, we know the Rady Shell as the home of the San Diego Symphony. Those musicians are not here tonight, but they certainly have given a warm welcome to the youth orchestra that is. It has been a beautiful afternoon here on the Bay, and we have been treated to some beautiful music as these young performers rehearse for the final performance of their national summer tour. If practice makes perfect, these teenage musicians are as talented and perfect as they come. With intensive rehearsal earlier this month,
all the melody, please.
100 members of the National Youth Orchestra came together from 31 states and Puerto Rico, Southern Californians among them.
I like the rich, deep, chocolatey sound of the viola.
18-year-old Spencer Quarles just graduated in June from Granada Hills Charter High School in the San Fernando Valley. He's grateful for his training time and performance inside New York's Carnegie Hall. This is the culmination of his education and hard work so far before he heads to the University of Michigan this fall.
I feel when I'm playing, I'm very much connected to my musician colleagues who are sitting around near me. We're all sort of feeling the music and very much overcome with joy by playing such incredible pieces together.
Jin Yoon and Jaden Kim are good friends and students at the Orange County School of the Arts in Santa Ana. These are picture-perfect moments they've shared, taken in Carnegie Hall, and stops along the way of the National Summer Tour. Jin has played cello since kindergarten, speaking what she calls the international language.
When we speak English or when we speak different languages like Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, we all always have to learn it. But no matter, even if you don't know how to read music, even if you don't know how to play the music, you can feel the emotions and the sentiment.
We start kind of adjusting to each other, and usually by the end of the tour, or at least like the last couple of concerts, it comes as like this great like product that kind of emerges after hours and hours of rehearsal and sectionals.
So practice does make perfect. It is certainly music to our ears. And good news, there are still tickets available for tonight's performance, which starts at 7:30 tonight. All you have to do is go online to theshell.org and buy your tickets and come and see these beautiful musicians live. John?
Beautiful music in a beautiful setting. Thank you. It looks like we're in for more hot days this weekend, but there may be some reprieve. Meteorologist Bree Guy has our first look at weather.
Well, one of the big stories continues to be the heat, and we do have heat alerts out, including a heat advisory into Saturday evening across portions inland. And then as we move even further east, that's when we take it up a notch with excessive heat warnings in effect across portions of the deserts and even into the mountains. But it's not just the heat, also dealing with some monsoonal moisture. When that rain is going to occur, well, we'll have those details coming up.
For the first time since the 1960s, one North County hospital will soon not be caring for newborns. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen has more on what led to Tri-City Medical Center suspending its labor and delivery unit.
Last night, the Tri-City Medical Center Board of Directors unanimously voted to suspend the labor and delivery unit indefinitely. The move was not unexpected. In a memo to the board, the hospital district's administrative team recommended suspending the unit because of current and expected financial losses. Tri-City Chief Strategy Officer Aaron Bizek says this is a temporary decision while the hospital works to finalize a partnership with another health system.
That's why we call it a suspension and not a closure. So the goal is to suspend in lieu of an affiliation that will bring back patients at some point in the future. And we think that there's a lot of opportunities out there. We're quite optimistic about.
The suspension is expected to take effect on October 1st. It includes labor and delivery, postpartum services, and the neonatal intensive care unit. The hospital has been caring for newborns since it opened in 1961. Tri-City says several factors led up to the decision last night, including low birth rates. The closure is part of a nationwide trend. A recent report by the research firm Chartis shows 217 hospitals in rural areas have closed their labor and delivery units. Locally, Paradise Valley Hospital closed its labor and delivery department 2 years ago. Palomar Health in Poway consolidated its services with its Escondido Hospital. The new Kaiser Hospital, which had its ribbon cutting today, however, wasn't a factor as it only provides services to Kaiser members. For Tri-City, trouble started when Vista Community Clinic decided to refer expectant mothers to Palomar, a move that was approved by LAFCO.
We fought that very hard because we didn't think it was actually fair or legal what happened, but unfortunately we're not successful in fighting that.
As a result, the average baby delivery dropped to about 1 a day. Bizek says that volume wasn't enough to sustain the unit. For Bizek, the decision affected him more personally.
So I was born at Tri-City. My brother, my sister, all my cousins, and even my son was born at Tri-City. My wife went into labor on my 30th birthday. And so my son was almost born exactly 30 years later in the same hospital.
But he remains optimistic that the labor and delivery department will reopen. He's calling it a rebirth, but he says it's difficult to say when that is. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
A national trove of medical information called All of Us just got a $54 million grant to bring more diversity to the database. The recruitment process, led by Scripps Research Institute, aims to change the practice of medicine. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge tells us how it's going.
1 million people, at least. All of Us wants to populate its medical database with that many examples of personal health. Former National Institutes of Health Director Francis Collins described the meaning of All of Us in this promotional video.
So much of what we've done in medicine over the years has not really taken into account individual differences. We're really building a fundamental base of knowledge about how humans stay healthy or get sick and what to do about it. I think the practice of medicine will be altered in profound ways.
All of Us was created during the Obama administration. Since then, the collection of personal medical stories is on the way to its 1 million-person goal.
We now say at least 1 million, and we're about halfway there. And so we've recruited over 500,000 folks.
Julia Moore-Vogel is with Scripps Research Institute, and she's program director of the Participant Center, or TPC, a nationwide consortium. She leads the group along with fellow Scripps research scientist Eric Topol. TPC just received a $54 million grant from the National Institutes of Health to recruit and retain volunteers. Participants will provide their genetic and medical information, including biological samples, to the All of Us database.
One of our goals is to make sure that 50% of the cohort is made up of folks who self-identify as part of a racial ethnic group that is historically underrepresented in biomedical research, i.e. non-white individuals.
But they also want people who are diverse in terms of their health.
Folks that are underrepresented in biomedical research in any way. So in addition to race and ethnicity, that includes things like disability, low socioeconomic status, sexual and gender minorities, etc.
The goal of making medical treatments precise or personalized means means understanding a wide range of human genetics and diseases. People who volunteer to be part of All of Us fill out a survey and typically provide a biological sample. It's not just a snapshot. Their health will be tracked by the program for 10 years. Amy Citapati is a primary care doctor who oversees All of Us at UC San Diego Health. She says having so many health examples in one place means we can treat your diseases by finding people out there whose health is very similar to yours.
It doesn't really work like a one-on-one. So it's not like find my twin. You know, the database is like find the people that are sort of like me. And then how do I compare to everybody else? And that's what's really great about it.
And what do volunteers get out of it? If they offer a biological sample, they'll have their genome mapped and they can get some good info about their health risks. And if they want, All of Us can also tell them where their ancestors came from, kind of like 23andMe. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Monday is the deadline to register for the special election to fill a vacant seat on the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. District 4 residents who are registered by the end of this day will be allowed to vote. 4 candidates are running: Democrats San Diego City Council member Monica Montgomery Stepp and Janessa Goldbeck, and Republicans Amy Reichert and Paul McQuigg. Ballots can be returned by mail or dropped off at one of 27 locations. Voting centers will remain open through August 15th. The Biden administration says asylum seekers can't come to the border without scheduling appointments through a phone app. Now, as KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis tells us, advocates have filed a class action lawsuit against the policy.
The app is called CBP-1, and asylum seekers who don't use it are getting turned away at the border.
The central focus of this lawsuit is that use of the CBP-1 app cannot be the exclusive way to seek asylum at a port of entry in the United States.
That's Melissa Crow. She's Director of Litigation at the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies, the organization that filed the class action lawsuit on behalf of 10 asylum seekers and 2 nonprofit organizations. They say some migrants just can't get appointments, either because they don't have a phone or they aren't tech-savvy enough to navigate the app. Others are in immediate danger and don't have time to wait for an appointment. Crow says existing laws should prevent the Biden administration from making these rules.
And this CBP-1 appointment requirement flies in the face of Section 1158A, which says that anyone, regardless of status and regardless of manner of entry, must be permitted to seek asylum at the U.S. border.
They're asking a federal judge to order the Biden administration to stop what they're referring to as the CBP-1 turnback policy. There are exemptions to the CBP-1 requirement, at least on paper. The policy allows people to present themselves at a border crossing and explain why they can't use the app, or explain extenuating circumstances like an imminent threat to their safety that prevents them from waiting indefinitely to secure an appointment. However, Crow says that people are being turned away before they can even reach the border crossing.
CBP-1 was not mandatory, and people should be able to go to ports of entry. And what is happening at ports across the southern border flatly contradicts that guidance.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Hundreds of millions of Americans face dangerous heat conditions heading into this weekend. Karen Kafa explains that while summer travelers are used to storms causing problems, aviation experts say extreme heat can also pose challenges in the skies.
A heat wave stretching from coast to coast into this weekend.
And even those places that are used to extreme heat have never seen it as hot as it is now for as long as it's been.
And those making a getaway should prepare for air travel disruptions, not just from summer storms, but extreme heat precautions too. Daniel Jacob of the University of North Dakota Aviation Department says the higher the temperatures, the less density in the air.
The aerodynamics behind lift or for an aircraft, the wings to generate lift is that it's dependent on the density of the air.
That means planes need less weight and longer runways for takeoff. Carriers may choose to carry less fuel or drop baggage or reduce passenger load. He says the safety of the ground crew is under consideration as well as they do the heavy lifting to service, fuel, load, and unload planes. Extra safety breaks to keep workers hydrated and cool can also delay flight schedules.
It's obviously going to affect the turnaround time for aircraft because these folks will have to go inside to a cooler place to, cool themselves, get some water, be hydrated.
To beat the heat, try an early morning or late night flight when temperatures are cooler, and comply with flight attendant requests to lower window shades and open air vents when a plane is parked at the gate to keep cabins cool. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
San Diego County has seen several deaths on or near hiking trails like this one at Lake Hodges this summer. Some of them because of how hot it's been. An expert with the Cleveland National Forest recommends hikers have their trail completely mapped out before departing and don't bypass any closed signs.
No shade in a few of these areas. They have to hike down to the waterfalls, and they don't realize they have to hike back up, which can be a very steep elevational gain. You don't bring enough water, you're going to go down, and that's where the rescuers have to come in and save folks.
Experts recommend you bring at least a gallon of water with you, that's per person. Also, plan your hikes early in the morning or later in the evening when it starts to cool off. Never stop striving for new heights. A 93-year-old reached the summit of Yosemite National Park's Half Dome after training for it in his senior living community. Margot Kim has that story.
Cheers echoed from Half Dome as 93-year-old Everett Kalin reached the summit. The retired professor from Oakland just added the challenging climb to his list of other fantastic feats, including jumping out of an airplane for his birthday last year.
I went up to the airport in Nevada and got in a plane, and a guy got on my back, and up we went, and then down we went. And I liked that a lot.
Kalin says his next goal just came to him, and since his son John is an avid backpacker, climbing Yosemite's Half Dome wasn't a half bad idea.
Kept going stretch by stretch, further and further. And just incredible to see him assembling those cables.
Kalin trained for the climb by scaling the stairs of his 17-floor senior living center.
I guess I was pleasantly surprised that when I got up there, I did not feel that I was huffing and puffing so much as we went up. It felt pretty good.
And with the blessing of his wife, Clara, Kalin, his son, and granddaughter, Sydney, broke up the 13-hour trek over a few days to reach the summit as a family on July 18th.
Really was a spectacular moment for 3 generations of us to be together and enjoying that all at once.
Yeah, that was great.
The world is now weighing in with much respect for Kalin and his accomplishments, but leave it to his loving family to add a little humor to keep him humble.
You're just one of the most stubborn, Dad. I think that's why you made it.
Margot Kim reporting. If you like that story, you'll enjoy our feature on local women who scaled Mount Kilimanjaro. They call themselves the Killa Queens. You can stream the story anytime on the KPBS YouTube page.
Let's start you off with your weather headlines, what you need to know heading into the weekend. It is going to be a steamy start to the weekend. Now, along the coast, it's not going to be as hot. We do have a deeper marine layer that's keeping temperatures down, but we are also tracking an increase in monsoonal moisture further inland. Now, tonight around San Diego, dropping down to a low of 69. There will be areas of low clouds, maybe causing some visibility issues late tonight into the early hours tomorrow, but pretty similar from Oceanside down to Chula Vista, with lows dropping down to the mid to upper 60s. Now, Borrego Springs dropping down to a low of 83. Mount Laguna 68, but then we have heat alerts out, heat advisory that's going to extend from Pine Valley, Julian, upwards towards Wrightwood as we move further inland, and then as we move further east, well, that's where we up it a notch with that excessive heat warning in effect for areas like Westmoreland, for the deserts and the mountains too as well. But then where do temperatures go? Well, Borrego Springs coming out with a high of 113, blowing dust is going to be a concern there. Mount Laguna flirting with 80, but of course a little lower along the coast from San Diego to Chula Vista with high at 78. But we are tracking an increase in monsoonal moisture. High pressure shifts east, and that's going to allow us to tap into this tropical moisture. Gusty winds, dry thunderstorm fire risk, especially further inland for our region into the mountains. Local flash flooding, blowing dust, but it is going to be a relief for the heat for some. Now, overall, it's going to be staying mostly sparse or isolated in nature. It's not going to be an all-day rain situation throughout the weekend, especially the start, but you could be caught under a heavier shower or thunder shower, so make sure you are staying weather aware. Along the coast, highs are going to be remaining in the low 80s for the most part over these next few days. Further inland, well, we're in the upper 80s, low 90s for the most part. Again, a spotty thunderstorm still going to be possible. Similar story for the mountains, with highs going to be dipping back down to the 60s. And for the deserts, well, we're staying in the triple digits with a thunderstorm even possible through Monday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
One of the biggest gripes about electric cars is the limited number of charging stations. That's going to change in the months and years ahead. SDSU's Miro Kopik tells us about an ambitious new plan in the Friday Business Report.
A bunch of firms, including Honda, Stellantis, GM, BMW, and Mercedes, are going to invest over $1 billion in building 30,000 charging stations between now and 2030. These charging stations are going to, come online beginning mid next year. They're going to complement the 32,000 charging stations that are already in place. Most of them are Tesla charging stations. These new charging stations are going to be dual-use charging stations, having both types of chargers. Over time, what the automotive industry has decided is to move to the Tesla type charger. And with the Inflation Reduction Act and the investment in electric vehicles, there are going to be, between all these systems, over 180,000 electric charging stations throughout the country between 2030 and 2035.
A small group of indigenous athletes in San Diego are working to bring back one of the oldest team sports in history, and with it, a key piece of Mesoamerican culture. KPBS reporter Katie Hyson went to their practice to witness the revival.
Underneath the roaring freeway at Chicano Park, surrounded by murals of resistance, a team of 7 gathers. The Fire Coyotes. Diverse indigenous ancestry, all genders and ages, 8 years old to gray-haired. Schools don't teach ulama. There's no manual for how to warm up. So they get creative, inventing drills that focus on their hips, the only body part allowed to hit the ball. They count off in Nahuatl, an Aztec language, as they stretch. They wrap leather around their midsection to protect their body from the 8-pound rubber ball, and a faja, woven belt, to protect their spirit. They sweep the pavement free of glass and practice diving onto it one-handed to save a low bouncing ball. They burn sage, ask their ancestors for permission to play their sport, and start the music. The drumbeat uniting players with the earth's heartbeat. And the game begins. Each side fights with their hips to keep the ball from crossing the line behind them. It's more than just a game. For thousands of years, indigenous people across Mesoamerica played ulama to settle conflict and connect with divine forces. Catholic conquistadors banned the sport. Now, half a millennia later, teams are forming again in Central America and the U.S. The Fire Coyotes director, Eduardo Santiago, calls it decolonizing through movement.
As we are asking ourselves, why did these things about us go away? As we are realizing that brown is beautiful, as, we are revitalizing our culture, there will be next generations of ulama.
Santiago first saw the sport on YouTube a few years ago. He dreamed of bringing it to San Diego. Then, last year, he heard there would be ulama at a cultural exchange between Las Vegas and cities in the Yucatan the next day.
And after my graveyard shift that morning, I took a drive to Vegas from San Diego.
There, Santiago met a team that practiced in the San Fernando Valley. He started driving 5 hours every weekend to train with them and learn the sport. Then he invited some of his friends to play in San Diego, including Michelle Sepulveda.
Well, that's my government name. And my indigenous name is Bagua Inaru, which in the Taino Arawak means woman of the ocean, woman of the sea, element of water.
Sepulveda grew up in Puerto Rico. She tears up describing the honor of bringing the sport out of her childhood history book and onto the pavement. I ask her if the sport has always been co-ed, but the question itself was rooted in colonized thinking.
Yes, of course, because I'm sorry, the Tainos, in my culture, we don't have difference between female and male. We are just Boricuas.
Sepulveda lives with lupus and fibromyalgia. She says Ulama has given her a reason to wake up every morning. The persistence connects her with her enslaved ancestors who played the sport during their breaks from the field.
Because imagine my ancestors pushed through even when they were playing this, you know, in the sugar fields, just playing bomba and remembering who they truly were.
She dreams of a real Ulama court at Chicano Park, and one day bringing Ulama back to her island. To her, the sport is both childlike joy and ongoing indigenous resistance.
We still, till this day, libre. We want our liberty. We want to be recognized, to be acknowledged that, you know, that Taino, I do exist.
The team will be formally inaugurated this Saturday at Chicano Park. Santiago says another team is already forming in Yuma, Arizona. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening and a great weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.